since we were strangers in the basement at a party we hated, trying to make conversation. The night it was taken, I didn't have a clue that someday I'd be something more than just a boy in a Polaroid with you.
A multi-platinum, Grammy award-winning, chart-topping career in country music. Keith Urban has been embraced by Nashville like a native son. The Australian musician was even invited to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry. His latest record reflects on the pace of the present moment, and he joins us now to tell us more. Keith Urban, thanks so much for joining us today. Now, can I start off by asking where you're joining us from?
Bonjour, Olivia. I'm joining you from Nashville, Tennessee, which is home for us. And this is my studio, actually, at home, my home studio.
I was going to talk about that because given the global health crisis at the moment, most musicians are taking a break from performing. They're not doing live shows or tours. And some are using this time to write, record in the studio, get some new material out there. You've already got a head start on that. Your record's already ready and coming out. It's called The Speed of Now, Part 1. And I wanted you to just tell us about how that took shape. Did you lock yourself up in the studio, quarantine style, to make it?
Yeah, I was luckily here, and as you said, I was quite a ways into the album already. So it was just a case of finishing the record, which I actually was, when we were touring, I wasn't sure how I was going to get the time to finish it on time, and did never expect something like this would happen. Honestly, I was probably paralyzed creatively for the first few weeks and not sure what to do or how to do anything, how to go about finishing it, but got down here eventually and got into the groove of working on the album and got it all finished.
Well, indeed, let's take a listen to one of those tracks from the new album. This is Superman. Now, that song is full of positive energy, it's quite romantic, and it references Johnny and June, Johnny Cash and June Carter, they're country music legends. Now, country music is notoriously romantic, it talks about heartbreak, it can be quite philosophical. What would you say are some life or love lessons that we can take away from the country music canon?
This record, of course, is an extremely diverse record genre-wise. I fuse a lot of things together, so I can't really label what the record is musically. I grew up playing all kinds of music and brought in all kinds of different collaborators on this album, so I'm anxious for people to get to hear more songs.
Now, one way that you were able to overcome the current health restrictions and get your music out there was by staging a very special sort of performance in Nashville. It wasn't a regular concert because people showed up to that in their cars. Now, can you tell us how you came to stage a drive-in musical experience?
Yeah, we did this back in May, I think it was. It was such an obvious thing to play to people in cars. I mean, not something I ever planned on doing, but the idea was so obvious when it was presented, because you know we have to figure out some way to play in a safe environment. And there's a drive-in not too far from us here in Nashville, about an hour away. We were able to get a stage built at the base of the screen. And when you think about it, I mean, when you go to concerts now, it's primarily a stage with a massive video wall behind it. Instead of selling all the tickets, we gave all the tickets away to all the healthcare workers, everybody who's been on the front lines, and just gave away every car pass to them, and they came out and had a great night. I had a blast, honestly. I really enjoyed it.
Going back to the new album, the title, The Speed of Now, seems to sum up 21st century experiences like multitasking, endless stimuli, virtual experiences. But there is something very nostalgic about tracks like Polaroid. It's like looking back to a simpler time, I thought. I wondered what your relationship to time is. Are you always looking forward, making plans, or are you more about living in the moment?
I'm very much in the moment, and The Speed of Now, as an album title, oddly enough, came to me last year. It was around September, October last year that I was thinking of a title for the album, and we'd just been doing a lot of touring all over the world, and I was really taken with how fast everything was going everywhere we went. People, all of us, I mean, we're moving, we're busier than we've ever been, and we're doing a million things, and we're flying around every year, and we're doing this and we're doing that. And it just seemed almost out of control. And I thought, what's the end game of all of this? Where is this all heading? And so the speed of now was sort of a societal comment about now, which is meant to be free of time, right? You're right, have no time, just now, the present. Even the now felt like it was going really fast. And then fast forward to February, March of this year, and I'm looking at this album title thinking, what does this mean? This doesn't mean what it did last year. For me, it actually took on a whole new meaning. The speed of now is very different to what it was last year. So I think this title will mean different things to different people, but the music encompasses my love of being in the moment and leaning into hope too, which is something my music has always done. Even the sad songs sort of have a sense of hope about them.
Now, I believe this is your 12th studio album. And looking back at your career, you've been immensely successful. Dozens of #1 singles in the US. Your albums have gone platinum various times. And this all really took off once you moved from Australia to Nashville, the home of the country music scene. I'm sure it was a pilgrimage for a young musician, but I wondered how hard it was to be a so-called outsider making a career there, especially someone as, like you say, you have other leanings, pop, rock influences in your music.
It was very difficult at first, not just because I was from another country and had a strange accent and looked very different, and you name it. I also played very different because of, as you said, my influences were very diverse. My parents' record collection was a lot of country music, American country music. But I'd also grown up playing in the pubs and the clubs. From the age of 15, I quit school at 15 and was playing 5 nights a week, 4 hours a night in cover bands. But the goal was always Nashville for me, to come here and make records and hopefully live in America and be able to tour. And all of that has come true beyond my wildest dreams.
Now, you've always been an enthusiastic collaborator with all sorts of respected artists, musicians throughout your career, and you worked with the Dixie Chicks on a few occasions, I believe. Now, that band's just announced they've changed their name to the Chicks because of an association with the Confederate South, with the word Dixie. Now, this comes during a moment of anti-racist protests around the world, and in the American South, that debate is particularly charged, particularly sensitive. How has it been to witness that as somebody who's living there, working there?
I love being here because I can see a lot of perspectives from where we live. And obviously we live in multiple places around the world as well. So we get to spend time in London and several places here in the States, New York and Los Angeles, Nashville, Sydney in Australia. I was born in New Zealand. So we have a lot of ability to travel around and be around people from all over the world. And I feel really, really fortunate that our family, particularly our kids, get to see lots of different cultures and opinions and beliefs. Because I think that for me, that's the most important thing, is to be open to hearing and seeing as many viewpoints as possible, because you understand where the passion comes from on all sides.
Now, speaking of your family, it's no secret that you're married to someone who's also phenomenally successful in her own career, which is cinema. That is, of course, Nicole Kidman. Now, juggling your professional commitments must be quite a challenge when it comes to your family life. But I wondered if, despite working in different disciplines, do you give each other tips or artistic feedback on your projects?
She's a much better actor than I am. But I think where we connect, and I have no interest in acting, and I think that's always that. Maybe I'm the rare musician that has no aspirations to act, but I love being a musician. I would much rather spend hours and days and weeks and months right here in the studio than sitting on a film set. But I think because we're both in the arts, we connect so strongly artistically, and I can. We're both very, very supportive of each other because of the arts. I don't know if I would have fared as well with somebody that wasn't in the arts. I think it's we really understand each other much better from an artistic standpoint.
as a musician, there has been a huge change. In the space of just a couple of months, you went from playing arena-sized, sold-out shows at places like Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas to taking part in the One World Together at Home event, where musicians performed in lockdown to a much, much smaller audience immediately. Now, this has been a massive shift for everyone, for musicians, for music lovers like us. Looking ahead, how do you see the future? Or if we try and be positive about this, what should we be looking forward to in the months and years to come in the music industry?
Right now, I think, without a doubt, the most important thing is innovation, creativity, flowing towards everything that is working and can work. And look, for me personally, when this whole lockdown started, particularly the lockdown period, I mentioned it earlier. I got quite paralyzed, artistically paralyzed, creatively paralyzed. I couldn't do anything. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. I felt really helpless. And a really good friend of mine said, so far on this call, you've mentioned everything that you can't do, but I haven't heard you say one thing about what you can do. Tell me what you can do. What can you do right now? I was so focused on everything I couldn't do, and I had to pivot on that. I think it's the same in our industry right now. What can we do? We can do virtual concerts. We can still record music. We can write. We can create. We can find ways to get out to our audience all over the world in ways we couldn't do before. And I think a lot of these ways that we do it will move in to the future. When we can tour traditionally, I think we'll blend elements of all of this into the new future, and we'll have this multi-dimensional way of reaching all of our audience out there that we've never had before this.
Indeed. Well, Keith Urban, thanks so much for speaking to us today. We're going to leave you with some more music, but this time with a twist. This is a cover of Dua Lipa's Don't Start Now. Keith Urban.
It's been nice to talk to you.
And do check in with us back here on Encore next time for more arts and culture. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.
If you wanna believe that anything can stop